one information I want to correct is that the lady in question was like a daughter to me. She had stayed with me for 3 years. She was a staff of the Federal Medical University. She was a nurse and not a physiotherapist. And the family and my family are like one family. And she has her medical records in Turkish hospital, being paid by us. She spoke to her boyfriend at the hour of her death and complaining that she was bleeding from the nose. And the boyfriend said, no, you have to report. You say it has stopped. So the boyfriend said, listen, I will not continue this conversation since you are bleeding. It will increase the bleeding. And she told the boyfriend, don't cut the call. The boyfriend cut the call. And 3 minutes later, the boyfriend called again. She was not responding. And even in the morning, she told the boyfriend she was going to bath because she locked her door, you know. So even in the morning, when they broke the door and discovered her dead, the tap was still running, you know. So, but what baffles me, you know, in this country is that everything becomes an opportunity. Now, there is a guest house where her and the second medical person stay. And that is very far from where I stay. And so it means that, God forbid, somebody dies in Ministry of Works, the minister must be accountable to that. Is that what they're saying? Is that saying that somebody cannot die? Is that, have they checked the medical records of the lady? Do they know, you know, that this lady was like a daughter to me? And but you know, everything goes into politics. But what I say to people, be careful. Life is spiritual. When you want to use the unfortunate death of a young girl to play politics, if we have hands in the killings, it will follow us in our family. But if we don't have hands and you are jumping into it, behold, this is David. I'm a man of full grace. You don't, you know, tackle me anyhow and you go out of it. So be careful when you want to use the death of that young lady. You know, one of my best workers, a nurse, a staff of the federal. Somebody said, oh, they were transported. You know, the second girl is from Benue State. You know, and that girl has worked with me as a governor before she was employed. And so when people darken the so while I'm not talking to the president, means nothing, but very painful to me that that girl passed on. You know, it's very difficult to replace her, you know. And, you know, the parents will be begging them, allow for autopsy to happen. They say it's against their culture. But the question is that if she were Muslim, will you be insisting that autopsy will happen? You know, but we insisted to our lawyer that autopsy should happen, and we are begging the parents to allow autopsy to happen, and I say no, it's against their culture. And so we have a statement, you know, and only God will resolve it, because we have directed that the corpse cannot be removed until they have done autopsy. But it's very strange why an unfortunate thing that happened, you know, is being made. Is it that we killed a woman that was giving me injection, you know, that you know, was administering drug to us, that live in our guest house, even in my residence in Asokoro. So what sort of rubbish is that? You know. So, but people should be careful, because when I kneel down to pray, I say, when you push yourself into this, I say, God, may the death of the girl be better than their own death. That's my prayer for everybody that is using it to play politics. But if we have hands, let it also follow us, because it can be very annoying when people use, you know, people's, you know, unfortunate incident and are playing politics. Some people are calling me, we are this organization, we want to do protest, we want you to see us. You know, what is it? This is David. You know, I don't fear battle, you know, and I've never lost any, you know. But life is spiritual. We need to be very, very careful. It's very important. So the matter is ongoing. We've reported to IG to transfer the case to Abuja, so that, you know, because I'm from a former governor there, so let them transfer it to Abuja and let them beg the family to do autopsy. I'm begging the family to meet with IG so that maybe IG can convince them. But there are medical records in Turkish hospital. The last one was on 5th of April, and it cost me 2.2 million. The records are there. I paid 2.2 million, you know. So that is it. So I don't want to go, because it's like a daughter that died. So I'm mourning, and I laugh at, you know, so they say it's a physiotherapist. You know, they presented the girls as if they were wrong girls, you know. these people were inside the plane with me, and my immediate staff. We flew together. It's not as if they even came to Ebonyi differently. We flew together, with them. We're going to Lagos, and this is not the first time. The boyfriend also told us that in Lagos, which was when we went for this coastal road, that she called him and said she was bleeding from the nose. He said, no, report to your boss. He said the boss will insist that she should go back to hospital, that she didn't want, and she don't stress me. So he said, look for hospital around there and go. That's the confession of the boyfriend, And so I've asked the police to go to the call log, and then they will see the last discussion, the girl had with the boyfriend at the hour of death, because the moment the boyfriend started calling again, she was not picking the call again. So you can go to the call log of the boy, go to the call log of the girl, and you hear the conversation. It's an unfortunate thing that happens. And like I said again, she's been receiving treatment at Turkish hospital, and the medical records are there. So I don't want to join issues with anybody, but just know that the guest house far from where I was staying, and as the head of that home, I take responsibility in making sure that, the right thing is done. But I suspect no foul play, but because, is it the girl, the colleague from Benue State, that they sleeping on the same bed? Is it the girl that we remotely care because her door was still locked? That door was broken before she did this thing, and the tap was still running, And the police, because she I think she was going to bath, and so when they took her to the mortuary, that's when the police took the picture in the mortuary. They don't dress up in the mortuary, and took the picture, and they send out damaging information. The police, whoever that spoke to Sarah reporter, after the burial, we answer to our family. We are not going to leave the matter line. I've directed my lawyers to get across to two, people on cyber bullying on this matter. So we're going to test the law on that. So
thank you very much.
That's just it.
Thank you very much.
May her soul rest in peace.
Thank you very much. We have come to the end of this presentation.
The most important person to be fired in the Tinubu cabinet is Bola Ahmed Tinubu himself. So whether he likes, he reshuffles the cabinet from top to bottom, move people from here to here, it is a waste of time, because once there is no clear vision and there is no political will to move the country in the right direction, even if you hire the best of the best, there is nothing to work with. In law, they will say you cannot build something on nothing. What exactly is the Bola Tinubu vision for Nigeria? You are taking out Wale Edun to replace with Taiwo Oyedele, who oversaw the, tax reform issue and the tax law issue that came out with forged clauses that came from the National Assembly, and he was even unable to ascertain exactly what document came out from the National Assembly and what was gazetted by the presidency that did not even go back to the National Assembly for harmonization. So when you talk about the Tinubu administration, Nigerians have had enough. It is a tale of recklessness across boards, and as it is today in Nigeria, it does not matter the step that this government begins to take today. It has proven for the last 3 years that it is detached from the realities of Nigerians. Nigerians are struggling with a bad and battered economy, with insecurity, with corruption that is in high heavens. Today, we are the fourth most terrorized country in the world. We are the maternal mortality capital, death capital of the world. We are the sixth most miserable country in the world. Nigeria has more than 18 million children out of school today. Today, we are the kidnapping capital of the world. If kidnapping was an Olympic sport, we'll probably have the highest gold medals as a country. So nobody exactly cares about what Bola Ahmed Tinubu is doing at this point. They should be rounding up and winding down, allow democracy to thrive. Let us have free and fair elections so that we can end this reign of terror over ourselves as a people. The president can decide to say whatever he wants to say. By stating that they will not scare you off, it is even a signal or an indication of fear in itself. Because when the president comes out to talk about the ADC National Convention, Mr. Dapo, are you aware of any court order that says it is illegitimate for the ADC to have held their convention? convention, why is the president talking about it? So when you want to talk about respecting the judiciary and court orders, was it part of the respect for the judiciary for the president to visit the Nigerian Judicial Council and also the judges, and they were singing on his campaign mantra on their mandate, they shall collapse? Does the president understand that in a democracy there is a principle of separation of power, and the judicial arm of government must be devoid of executive interference, where you commit a cabinet minister to take care of the welfare of the judicial officers? And today we have the kind of judiciary that we have in Nigeria. Does the president understand the principle of the constitution and the judiciary or the laws that govern this country to know that the primary responsibility of government is the protection of life and property, and that under his watch Nigeria is the fourth most terrorized nation in the world, and that having failed woefully in protecting the lives of Nigerians and their property, the president has no reason to be moving about the country talking about a campaign or re-election when persons are dying? Did President Tinubu respect the judiciary and the lives of Nigerians when people were slaughtered in Plateau State? He visited the state, ended in the airport, and said because there was no light, he was spending 10 minutes. They rather brought victims of insecurity to the airport to meet the president like a monarch. Is President Tinubu aware that as a president and commander-in-chief, kidnappers are taking people and government is paying ransom? No, Mr. Dapo, I don't know exactly what the president is talking about, but as a people, we must ensure we have free and fair elections to liberate ourselves.